you have to get it done there, and then you have to really collapse on them and hope they don't call them. And like I said, when it's a perfect storm of things, the good news is Purdue will not be playing any NCAA tournament games on anybody's home court. So kind of segue into this, like we want to do like a Sweet 16 or a top 16, bracket reveal preview.
Yeah, so let everyone know that may not be aware what kind of went down on Saturday and what we have to look forward to up until Selection Sunday, kind of what they're doing. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't know that this was a thing. Our buddy Adam didn't know either, and I think it's awesome that you're so dialed into that, and it really does make a difference. And it's cool to kind of extrapolate everything and see where different scenarios where things lie. So why don't you lay it out for us?
All right. Well, obviously in the bracket reveal, they had it on, on CBS, they had it at like noon, 12:30, depending where you're at. Like, they did the bracket reveal where they come out with the, top, obviously they do all the top 4 seed lines, so they came out and Purdue was the top overall seed, the number 1 seed. And, some people that don't really follow were confused by this because UConn's been number 1 in the country for like 5-6 weeks in a row. And Purdue's been number 2 in the country for that same duration. Once UConn basically overtook them, that's, after Purdue's most recent loss. Well, Purdue, like UConn hasn't lost going back to like, I believe in December. So I don't think they've lost this calendar year, 13, 14 wins in a row. And Purdue had just gotten 8 or 9 wins in a row. I believe this might've been 9 or 10. I don't know. This might've been, anyways, so like they have a very long winning streak as well. Purdue actually had a tendency they had won 7 games, lost 1, won 7 games, and then they lost 1. Then they actually got past that, and I think won 8 or 9, and now here we are. We lost today, but so a little bit of some tendencies there. But to get into the top 16 preview, they had UConn as the number 2 overall team. And obviously a lot of UConn fans are upset of that. I'm just trying to pull it up right here and I have it on my phone just to make sure. Sorry.
You got it
you got it for me. Okay. So, and I pretty much remember, I think, but I just want to have a point of reference just to see the overall seeding that they do. So, Houston was a number 3, number 1 seed. And then there's a lot of debate across the land who would be the number 4 seed, whether it be Arizona or Marquette or Tennessee or possibly North Carolina. And I think largely because of the regions, they had Purdue in the Midwest and they had them number 1 overall. And obviously these things are done geographically. Like if you're a number 1 overall seed, you get a pick to where you want to go. And then it kind of goes down the line, like what place you want to go play at in the top seed line. So you don't get a choice after that. And obviously, depending on the region, you're not, if you're the 4th one, you're not getting to pick because the other 3 have already picked. So, but the number 1 overall picks where they want to go. But this year is a very interesting year in the fact that everyone who is a number 1 seed candidate at this point, basically the ones that are locks to be number 1, unless barring something outrageous happens, they're going to be able to pick the region they want to be in anyways, because the other regions are all favorable to where they want to go. So like it wouldn't like, so anyways, they made it Arizona. So we finished that point. It was the 4th number 1 seed. So this particular Purdue's in the Midwest and that regional is in Detroit. So the first 2 games there would be in Indianapolis, but it wouldn't matter what region Purdue would be in. The first 2 games would be in Indianapolis, either way, being a 1 seed, because you'd get those, but then they could still ship you way out to like where else, like, so it's like Midwest or South region or the East. They're going to put you close to your in your geography as you can be. So like they're going to be there. That's where the Detroit regional is. And then UConn wants to be in the East, so they can play, I think it would be in Boston, might be where the regional is. But like, so they'd want to be over there. The Houston region would be the South, and that's in Dallas. So obviously they'd want to be in the Dallas regional, close proximity. And obviously the Arizona one is way out west. I believe it's in Los Angeles, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So they would end up there anyways right now. But there was a lot of like splitting hairs, like nationally, who would get that 4th spot. A lot of people really like Marquette's resume. I know that Tennessee was right there. But unfortunately, some of these teams that are trying to get up in that spot and stay there, somebody will lose or whatever. And so it's like the resume for the first few teams, like, is impeccable. But the incredible thing about this selection show, before I get to the other, the 2s, the 3s, and the 4s, is this was the first time ever, and I think this was like 6 or 7 years of them doing this, I believe they said, the first time that they have ever been unanimous on the one on all the 1 through the 4 seeds on like, or I believe it was actually on all of the seeds. But the 1 through 4 for sure, every member of the 12-person committee was unanimous on their decision of like the number 1 overall, the number 2 overall, the number 3, the number 4. It's never happened before. So a lot of people nationally might have thought like, well, Arizona, I don't really know. Well, they were unanimous by 12 people. So it wasn't like, and they get to splitting hairs when it gets like, down 5 through the rest of the field, which they actually did go through that process to have that. They just don't reveal that. I think Jerry Palm, Purdue native, he actually went through and finished that off, and you can go and see what was there after. I actually have not done that, but I've gone on Lunardi's bracketology and such to see who kind of was plugged in, but that's a very fluid thing, especially at the bottom. You can change the seed line by losing up a bad loss or 2 or be out or on the bubble. And so the number 2 seeds are Tennessee. And then
Tennessee in the Midwest region with Purdue as the 1 seed.
Yes. And then, well, you've got the list right in front of you, so I'll just let you rattle them off.
Yeah, so the 2 seeds, Tennessee in the Midwest region, and the East region, where UConn is number 1, is North Carolina. In the West region, where Arizona resides, is Kansas. And in the South, where Houston resides, is Marquette. So,
now some of these things, before we go to any more of these things where teams, like if there's multiple teams from the same conference, there's a structure in place where you cannot play anybody in what's called the protected seeds, which are 1 through 4 in your region. There's a couple of rules that they have to stand by. And one is if you're in the same conference, you cannot play anybody in your region. So it's not like Tennessee, if they're the number 2, Purdue's number 1, Tennessee 2, they couldn't put Alabama as the 3 seed in Tennessee's region because you can't have anybody 1 through 4 in the same conference in that region.
That makes sense.
So that's actually, that'll help explain why they did some of what they did. There's also some protection issues regarding like the protected seeds, the 1 through 4 seeds, where if you're in X proximity of that opening round site, I think it's just the opening game site, actually, maybe not the second round, but definitely the opening game site, you can't play like if you're like the 9 or an 8 seed. Well, I guess that's to be the first 2 rounds, but they can't plug you in to play like, if you were like, let's say if Indiana and Purdue's region, if Indiana State, now they've fallen off a little bit, but 2 games ago, they're like an 8 or 9 side, maybe. You can't put them in Indianapolis playing against Purdue because it's like within 45 minutes, hour and a half, something like that of their campus. So you couldn't just be like, oh, hey, you can play them and like, oh, they get a big upset because now you get to play like a smaller team and you're really, screwing over the team that's had the better season all along. So carry on with the 3s and the 4s. With that, some of this might make some more sense.
Yeah. So with that in mind, Midwest region, Purdue's region. So with Purdue and Tennessee, Baylor's your 3rd seed. East region with UConn and North Carolina, Iowa State is your 3 seed. West region with Arizona, Kansas, you're looking at Duke in that region. South region, along with Houston, Marquette, is Alabama. So Yeah, I mean that's something. One thing that jumps
What's
the thing that jumps out to me about UConn, just looking at it and talking about seeds and protection and all that.
yeah.
It seems as though UConn seed should have been swallowed.
I mean, it could be a family show. Depends on
Pull
what's
out.
wrong with your, depends on how wrong. What's wrong with your family?
Sorry.
No, don't have to apologize. We're here for viewers, and we'll do censorship next. Good.
UConn fans are hilarious. Like,
They are something.
miss me with the men's side of it. I will bow down to the women's accomplishments.
Yeah.
You've been very fortunate in the men's tournament.
It's
Kimball Walker's not walking through the door this year.
yeah.
So in the Midwest region, the 4th seed is going to be San Diego State. That's huge for San Diego State. I think that's awesome that they you know,
Mountain West Conference. Yeah, that's a big time.
Yeah, I mean that is big time. I mean, and at that, you know, of the 4 seeds, they were the second 4 seed. They're the number 14th overall seed. I think that to me, and the reason I point that out is I really think that that shows me that's one of the things that stood out to me when you sent this to me on Saturday afternoon. That for good and bad. The reason I caught it so soon, it was like, fuck, they're in Purdue's region, you know. Right. But more big picture, I was like, okay, they're really paying attention. These aren't just like they're not okay.
Oh yeah.
So that that's awesome. You know, obviously it's their job, but as everyone knows, they've got a lot of shit wrong over the years. But
yeah,
I didn't know what you had just said about how everything was unanimous across the first 4 seeds. So
that's wild. And so some of that going through, like, I don't know if you haven't finished the 4 seeds yet, have you? Or
no, I can run through real quick. Hold on.
Yeah.
So in the East region, UConn's region, you have Wisconsin at the 4 seed there. West region, Arizona's region, you have Auburn. Good luck. You know, that's a strong 4 seed. You know.
Yeah. I mean, they did lose.
Yeah, they did.
Kentucky.
I can make a case in that region. You look at Arizona, Kansas, Duke, and Auburn. I may take Auburn in that region.
There literally could be. I mean, we don't know who would be. I'd have to look at the other one to see what. There could literally be nobody left in that one.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, there could be, like, last year. I don't think any of the top 16 seeds made it. I'm pretty sure that is accurate. I'm not. I feel like I don't think any made it for the first time ever.
No, I mean, to me,
that could happen. I mean, I don't think that will actually happen again. But like, there'll be. I bet half of them will be gone, like, right away. It wouldn't surprise me.
To me, that West region, as we talk about Purdue's region with San Diego State and how smart that was, how sharp of a pick San Diego State it was by this committee, I feel like they're fucking with us with the West. They're like, hey, watch these idiots will fall for this. Let's Arizona, Kansas, Duke. Oh, this has to be the hardest region. Like, no, if you've been watching basketball, this like these teams are so up and down. That's wide open. You know, so that to me is kind of like it's almost like
it's a crapshoot. You could just
they're like, oh man, like they're on the surface of it, they're gonna a lot of brackets. Like, I can't fill this bracket out in this West region.
Just pick the 14 seed and call
you might want to pick Auburn. Actually, it would probably make the most sense.
Yeah. I mean, they're right there.
Danny Manning, shut up. Christian Laettner, does he still play for them? Yeah. I like their uniforms; they're blue.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, South region, Houston's region, Illinois, the 4 seed. Which is volatile, you know, that 4 seed is yes, it's dangerous, but I don't know. I don't know that, you know, there's a path where I see that they're not holding on to that 4 seed. I mean, they have them in as 15 on this preview.
I think they'll be up on the 3 line, and Wisconsin will be out, and Auburn will have some work to do because they don't, you know. So, kind of dissecting it a little bit at this point.
Go ahead.
So, with Wisconsin, so, you know, they take it like resume, body of work, everything else. with the way Wisconsin and Illinois getting the 15 and 16 seed overall,
yeah,
there are teams just right behind that were talking about like that didn't like that they had in consideration, like Dayton was one they had mentioned, and I guess I forget what I forget like some of the other teams. They had a couple of teams right there in that contention of like, well, who could get that spot.
Yeah.
And I remember Dayton being in one. Creighton's another one. So Dayton, Creighton were both on like Lunardi's bracket. We're like, there, maybe Lunardi. I know they for sure like Creighton. And so like those teams still have a spot chance to move up in that area. And the reason why
those are your traditional 5-12 guys.
Yeah, well,
you want the lure of a good game in that 5-12, and your 12 is going to be an out.
Well, the 5s are going to be probably pretty good,
and you want your 5 to be very solid, and that they fit that profile to where it's going to be a 50-50 game in the 5-12 game.
Well, 12-5 over the last. I'll look this up as we get closer to doing whatever. But there's been it's the only. Awesome. It's insane. So like. Other than I believe more 9s have beaten more 8s. That's the only one. Well, that's not really an upset. That's the only one where there is where the underdog wins more than the favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But like as far as like 10-7s, it's like it's almost 50. It's like massive. It's very right. The next closest, and then like it jumps like like. I want to say that like 5-12s happen more than 11-6s even.
It certainly seems like it may not be, but it seems like.
But there's been some kind of there might have been a few years back where no 12 seed made it, but I want to say going with the exception of, and I have to find this out. I'll look it up.
We'll have to do another one with a deep dive of the last couple of years with sample size.
Yeah, we'll be doing that. Yeah, we're gonna start doing that for sure. But like I know a few years back it didn't happen for the first time. Like whatever. Yeah. But I think going back to like 25, 30 years, the tournament like has had a 12 seeds beat like 20 years or something like that, a 12 seeds beaten to 5. And there's been 2 or more happen numerous times in the last like 5 to 10 years too. Like, I mean, numerous, like I think one time all of them have done it and 3 of 4 have happened, a couple handful of times. And I feel like 2 or 3 happened last year. I mean, we'll get into it. So we're right now just projecting.
It's amateur hour with that as far as I guess the bigger point to that the 5-12 is it's just it really is what makes this like fucking Christmas,
But yeah, absolutely. But
it's just that's just like you're sitting there and everybody, whether you've watched a ton of basketball or you haven't watched any, everyone's filling that bracket out and you just know 5-12, I got to watch out for this. Like, at least one of it. If you're wrong, if you don't have at least one of those upsets.
Yeah.
It's just, and so what that does is that person that hasn't watched a single game and they fill that out, like they are glued. They're just refreshing like mad if they're not watching the games. Like that's just so cool to get. Like, I just wish we cared about anything else as much as that, as a society, it's just really cool when you see those things. And it just keeps proving itself to be what, it's tried and true that it's a big deal. And I think when that, like the magic of that happens, I think that has to enter the mind of these committees. Like we really want a good matchup for this 5-12, the 8-9. We cannot have a blowout either way. Otherwise we look like idiots.
Yeah.
There's those things. Like I think it would be fascinating to be a fly on the wall.
You're right. And some of those times they set up like good theater, like that coach used to coach there. That happens every time. And you can't tell me it always like, they were the 32nd overall team. Well, they were the 36th, but it makes for a better game. Like, like you can't in an S curve, but going back to like what I was saying, I think, Dayton would possibly be considered to be like, well, I guess it would mean the Detroit thing, but I think just to give you an example, like so Dayton would be a 4 in that case. So maybe it's a better example. Like you couldn't have like if there's a game being played at that regional, like you can't, like if they played in like Kansas City or something like that, and you have Creighton, you couldn't have like Creighton be like the 4 seed in a Kansas, like if it was like Kansas City, like, regional, because like it wouldn't be fair to like Kansas if they were like the 1 seed to play a 4 seed Creighton when they're both fairly, what I'm saying, like obviously Kansas has a big following, but you just so they always take that in consideration. So they were talking about it without telling you like the reason why they selected Wisconsin and Illinois is because they couldn't put them in Purdue's thing, although I think they aligned to be up there, if that makes sense. Like if they went true seeding, so they have to negotiate things around so whether they can't be in those two. And that's why they were 15, 16. They would have done a little something different, which is probably also why, the Tennessee ended up over there. I think, and you can, there's rules about how many times you can play somebody in the regular season for them to be in your, like, even in your region, even like, but that's going in the first game. There's different rules, but carry on.
I think that the top seeds are the top seeds. I think that the value that we can bring to others is who are some other teams that may not have been in that top 16 that you've been that have caught your attention, that caught your eye, and they can legitimately make a deep run, regardless of where they end up in what region they're seated in. What teams you just flat out like?
Well,
I mean, I can give you a couple of mine. Just so you can tell me why you would or wouldn't like them. I think my first one is St. Mary's. Man,
and they're going to be hovering somewhere in that 10-7 range, but they might pop. Hopefully they're not 8-9, but I think they'll actually improve upon that. Might be like a 7. And that'd be, if they were, it'd be very dangerous, 8 or 9. But go ahead.
I just love tournament experience. I love a balanced team. I love a team that can play with pace and rebounds well. Good defensive metrics. Just an all around solid team. With a bit of upside, I think that there's some scoring punch there as well. I mean,
very well coached.
Yeah, they've had some spike games as far as offensive output.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of competition in a smaller conference like that, you still have to put the ball in the hole. To show that you have that scoring punch. You're not winning, 48 to 44 point games like in your conference and winning every game there. Like, no, there's been 40-point wins and they're putting 100 on the board.
To your point, obviously some of those smaller teams in that conference have been getting better and better over the time. The San Francisco Dons, like some of those teams have been like pretty respectable. Could be a sneaky get in, like at large, whatever, that's been happening. But like if Gonzaga was not in that conference, St. Mary's would be doing Gonzaga
St. Mary's
stuff.
would be Gonzaga.
They would be. They really would be. And so, like, you look at a team like that, which is why I think they'll move off that line, because long gone are the days, well, unless maybe like something like this year, where Gonzaga is like an 8 or a 9 seed. Like, that could actually happen. But this would be the first time in eons where that's been like, they're actually on the bubble to make the tournament. So this year might be that exception. They might end up like a 10 or 11 or something. But I mean, I think if St. Mary's goes out and then beats them heads up again or whatever, especially in that conference tournament, there's no way you can put a team that's won that thing, have a couple wins like that, and not have them like a 6 or 7 seed.
I like them. I like them a lot. And
so
what it tells me is with Gonzaga. I mean, to their credit, I mean, you get sick of hearing their name, and you just wish other teams.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean,
get that much credit for not really finishing the deal. But what it does tell me is in that conference out there, that in a relatively short period of time, St. Mary's has done some work, because they're going after the same kids in the recruiting and in the transfer portal now, and to kind of eclipse a Gonzaga who's regarded as a national power. I think that I'm excited to see them in the tournament because I think that they have some punch, and I think that they have some kids with those kind of kids are going to have the chip on their shoulder to begin with, and they have the experiences. I think that that's going to be a fun team to watch.
Their program puts out winners, and they've got an excellent culture. Yeah. They have for a long time now. The other thing is like no one talks about them at all, hardly at all. Even like when they're whatever, like they still feel like they're second fiddle in their own conference.
Exactly.
So they play with the chip on their shoulder, and it's like they have like they're very, very good. Like I don't know, it's hard to even project even when you see bracket to see like who can do deep runs. So like obviously some of this is on speculation on whatever, sure. Of course, because this is coming like a bad, but they have a potential to go fairly far for a team that's down the way like that. I think that there's probably some Mountain West teams in it, not named San Diego State, that probably were going to be pretty good. I've heard a lot about Isaiah Stevens in Colorado State. Mm-hmm. Haven't watched him play a lot. It sounds to me like it's going to be a 5 or 6 bid league. So I really need to do a little bit more, setting up on who's really, really doing well and catching my eye in that. Cause I remember last year I'm down here in Alabama, and I'm watching UAB play Fort Atlantic in the semifinals of the conference, their conference championship. And I'm watching Fort Atlantic, and I'd heard about them all year, and they only had like a couple losses. I was like, you need to watch out for this team, and people were saying that, and I'm like, and I don't think I really caught much of their games because a lot of them really aren't. They're on TV. Everything's on TV now somewhere, but it's not easily accessible, and they're not at that time. They're not playing like these marquee out of conference, non-conference games. So, but like down here, you get in that conference with like UAB. And they are just like these teams are really, really good. They get tremendous athletes. They get guys that usually stay around for a while. The guard play in some of these smaller leagues is always exceptional. It's always exceptional, which is part of the problem where Purdue's ran into some teams where it's like we've been bigger and they've had these really quick guards and whatever else, and we just didn't have people that could the depth in the bodies to keep up with them. And at the time, I don't think that's a problem this year, but like. I was watching them play them last year, and I thought, like, man, Fort Atlantic has some dudes. They look like when I'm watching them play, I was like, I really hope to hell that they're like not in our bracket or whatever. Which, ironically, they ended up there. We didn't do well enough to get a chance to play them, so it didn't matter. But because UAB was a good team, and it's like I saw them like put like a 25 burger. Like beat them pretty bad, in a game where it's like all the players. When you get these conference things, like the coaches know the coaches. The scouting's out there on all these teams. They know what they're going to do. So when you know what your conference opponent's going to do, and you're playing them, and you have similar athletes in a way in general, and similar skill players, and you're beating people by 20, 25 on in your conference, or winning on the road in these conferences by 15, 10 points. You that's a testament to how good you are in any conference, but in like these smaller conferences, like the margin for error is so much smaller. So if you can beat these teams, like when you're playing heads up in some of these things by 15, 20 points, it is massive, and so I like to watch a lot of the conference tournaments as we're only a few weeks away from, to see some of that because you're getting some winning pedigree in there. Obviously I usually go through box scores, kind of check. I try to watch a lot of hoops as well. Box scores don't tell you everything, but if you know what to look for,
yeah, exactly.
You pass the eye test. So like, at this point, I've really not done a deep dive, and I've watched a lot of teams I think that could be pretty good. Like Iowa State's one of the teams that's amongst those teams that I think have a chance to be very, very good when they get in the tournament. They're one of the top, protect 16 top 4 seeds at this point, so they wouldn't really fall on that criterion. I like your St. Mary's call. I'm just really trying to go through like the there are teams that I don't know if they're going to make the tournament.
Yeah,
that we talked about that, like if they do, they're going to be a problem, like St. John's or maybe even Seton Hall. If they get in and watch them play, they They look pretty good. I mean, they're both Big East teams, so they're going to be pretty well battle tested when they're within their conference. I think that I think the Ty Berry injury is really hurtful for Northwestern because I think if they've got a lot of very good players, and I don't like their coach one bit, but he knows how to coach and he knows how to motivate. He knows how to work the refs and grab people's arms as they're going onto the court. He's one of them, not the one I was talking about, but he's one of the culprits. The Berry guard loss was humongous because they hit you with like 3 guards. They have some good. They got a little bit of depth, a lot of fouls to give underneath, and they can go out and if you just go out and flat shoot 3-pointers, and you can spread people out and you can get people that way. You can be a real force to be reckoned with. So I usually have some teams that I'm already kind of like on at this point, but right now some of those teams have not done enough to make the field at this point.
I think that the Big 12 being so strong this year, it's kind of hard to gauge. Like I wish I would have paid more attention to any non-conference games they played outside of just his, like you said, you can look at box scores, but just things you pick up watching, habits, what they do on a break, how do they get back in transition defense, like what their tendencies are. One thing that one team that I know I mentioned this, so we differ on this a little bit, that one team that I did not like when I looked at them, when I actually watched some film on them, was Iowa State. Just some of their defensive tendencies. I think that if this is the thing. This is the dynamic. As you get, if they can get past their first, game, get to the second weekend, first 2 games, it becomes almost somehow less and less apparent because you can't really exploit that like you could, going into the first game. I think that Iowa State has potential to be knocked off if they run into a team that can get out and run. But if they survive, the first 2 rounds, I think that they could, obviously they're already there. They're making a deep run, but I think that they could be a very tough out. But there's just a couple things. And that's another thing. I mean, maybe that is a function of how strong the Big 12 is. It's just they're getting exploited because they're playing really good teams, this year.
If you go look at some of Texas Tech scores, they've been pretty pretty good, pretty alarming. I mean, I don't know if it's easier for you to pull it up, or I can probably pull it up if you want. But they look like a team that can make some serious noise. I've not watched them play a lot, so I don't have usually I'd be more familiar with certain players and names, but I was just kind of scrolling through teams that I thought I don't really know that much about them. I've watched them play, but not, and I remember looking at some of their box scores and I've been like, man, that's pretty good. I didn't really plan on talking about them. So
we almost need to go conference by conference at some point with these, but
we will definitely have a more in-depth.
But Big 12 to me stands out this year, just how,
I think they're going to be
bottom. It's been competitive.
Yeah, I feel like obviously they're going to get a number of teams in, which means they're going to have some teams like you think, maybe and I say something like that you don't think will get knocked out, and then the other way around, team you think might get you and I are both are I can't trust Kansas any farther than I can throw them. Whereas with Houston, whereas with there's another team right there. Texas is a team, if they get in, and where they're going to have a talent advantage, probably in their first game without question. I mean, I can't say, but probably most definitely, right?
Yeah.
But you get into a situation where it's they, there's something to be said about the grind of like playing iron sharpens iron, So like it's like I don't think you can really afford to take a day off in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Like if like the winner of that conference could have like 5, 6, 4, 5, 6 losses, which would be a lot for that. Usually it's like, it's like I feel Houston would
Tech, just looking through their schedule, they knocked off Kansas by 29.
There you go. They just did that recently.
Yeah, that was on the 12th Monday.
Yeah,
last Monday.
That's a pretty big win though to beat someone Texas of that caliber by that much. Yeah,
they got Texas. They rode the Big Ten bicycle that is Michigan. And got off on that, just like everyone does.
Yeah. This makes me feel way better. But when we lost to Ohio State, way better about not going and laying an egg at Michigan, by the way, which would look really, really bad. That was one I was actually more worried about because, you know what I'm saying? They have nothing to play for. And so it's like you can't lose that one because that'd be like literally a quad 4 a lot. At least this one says Ohio State probably getting an IT, right? But still.
Yeah, for the most part, they took care of business. They did lose to Villanova. And they lost the high-scoring game against Butler early in the year. But
I think those were neutral site tournaments.
Yeah,
but still,
they lost to Houston. It's a bloodbath in the Big 12. The Houston loss, that doesn't surprise me. Running the table against Texas. So it's just they lost to TCU. TCU's another team that
I think you really like them.
I think that TCU is
guard plays good,
premium version of St. Mary's, in my opinion.
Yeah.
A lot more battle tested for sure, but kind of the same. Bringing a lot of veteran experience and big game, and I just like their parts. I like their veterans in the backcourt. I've always, I think my earliest memories of watching the tournament and really paying attention, understanding this is different, for me was obviously we were always watching Purdue, but what always stood out to me was guard play, and that started with the UCLA team, the O'Bannons. But
the
O'Bannons were ridiculous, but Toby Bailey, Cameron Dollar, taking games over. When they had no business.
Tyus Edney,
and I saw the value of that in the tournament when I was 13, 14 years old. And they didn't end up doing anything as pros or anything like that, but they were just very solid, sound guards that had frontline talent, elite talent. The O'Bannon brothers were ridiculous. If you know, you know.
Absolutely. Exactly.
But that was the kind of the first impression where I started paying attention to it. And you can go year by year, and it just seems like Mateen Cleaves. He just went berserk in the tournament.
Yeah,
he's a good player.
That Michigan State team.
The
2000 that won it all was one of the better teams I've seen. That really had guys just buy in, that were just really good. Whatever they did, knew their role. The guard play was really good. The other guard on that team was they had Mo Pete using a guard boy. They had other
no, he was.
It was like 4. It's like
2, 3.
But but honestly, later than this, of course, the Florida teams that went back to back that, they had the best. That was one of the best culminations I thought of what it takes to win tournament talent I've ever seen with Cordy Brewer. They had 5 pros in the tournament.
Brewer, Noah, Horford.
Horford.
What
ridiculous.
Really drove them was
he's still playing, right? He's still playing NBA, right?
Little Teddy Dupay was the difference in most of those games.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They were. There was another person with Harrington. Who was the other forward on the team? Their team was ridiculous.
Al Horford.
Yeah, Al Horford. Yeah.
3 pros, 3 lottery picks.
Corey Brewer was
Corey Brewer was ridiculous.
Ridiculous, man.
He didn't work out in the pros for whatever. Just a bad. The pros are so much about getting to the right situation. Even like Edie, it's critical when that happens. Absolutely critical. But he's really
probably got like 3 to 5 landing spots that he really needs to go to.
There's only one Kobe. There's only one Jordan. There's only one LeBron. Like those are transcendent. Like it doesn't matter. You can put them anywhere, and they're going to be all-time greats. But like a player like Corey Brewer in college and his measurables and how good he was defensively and how versatile he was offensively, he looked like fucking Scottie Pippen. But you go to the wrong team.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know.
But in college, he's a problem.
Yeah, they just, but like, and I think, and circling back to like Purdue, I think that's where we need to cycle in some Heidi and some Colvin, not, and I know they're doing that, and they've been doing it a little bit more. Like, Colvin played a lot of, a decent amount of minutes, didn't really get an opportunity, but he played more, which meant Matt Painter trusted him longer on defense because he actually was made some defensive switches that a little better than what he has been, cutting people off, running to the baseline, things that are going to help your team win. Like, that way it changes their angle where they're not, cutting somebody off to the basket is like, it's a no, you have to, it's a must, you can't let them just get a free run to the basket. So like, I just think there's going to be a game where like, Colvin, maybe especially because of the shooting, like Heidi can also shoot, but like where those guys are going to be counted on to make some plays, or certainly like a Gillis or whatever else. I just think that they need to get some more of those like wing type players to get that run, because they're going to run into a team that shuts down a few other things where Lawyer might not be shooting threes, or Lance Jones has got a tough cover on defense and might be a little bit off or whatever. We're going to have someone else step up and get some of that instant offense going. And you might sacrifice some on the defense, but to have a player that can go and get an explosive basket, man, just rises the level of everybody else on your team. Like, even if it is your 8th, 9th, 10th option, whatever it may be, like, and it's like, I know like everybody shortens their bench come March Madness, but I think that's why we're actually really excited about next year's team. And this is like one of Purdue's greatest seasons, our 3-year run ever. But it's like they will have that next year in spades. 100%.
If I was on this podcast and Heidi and Colvin were sitting here right now, I'd be like, man, you better go fucking get yours, because there are some. You might not have a better. You might not have a better opportunity at minutes than right now.
Yeah,
like how to get them.
And, the thing about it is, like, the tournament makes people like that.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, if you go in and it's like, you can get like 10, like, I remember, I want to say, like, maybe was it like the Michigan guard, maybe Stauskas or something like that?
Yeah.
Like, he just went bananas on their run, like, to
out
where,
of
like,
too, because that
out of nowhere, like,
Hardaway and all
the Burke, they have lots of great players, like Trey Burke, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a dude. Trey Burke is damn good.
Yeah, they all are.
But I mean, they all were. But the thing was like you had that guy, and it's like this guy, he's not even on a report. Like, he's on a report, but like, what I'm saying, like, you can't. They weren't running plays for him, probably barely, right? Like Matt Painter even said on record, he's not running plays for more than 2 or 3 people on that team, right? So these people are not really getting plays ran for them, so to speak. But that's why these guys that can fit in and hang in there and, get to keep your head up is so critical. And I think, like, I wish he would have done a little bit more with his minutes, but like getting some of those guys, and Heidi played some too, some more run to where when they get out there, it's like, oh man, it's like, because, Cole's kind of guy. It's like, I don't think he's going to give a crap if it's into a tournament, right? Like, he go up there and like, he's going to shoot the rock. I mean, honestly, shoot, like, you know what I'm saying? And that matters.
Yeah.
Because that's honestly what's held us up. Lance Jones wasn't afraid. You got to have a couple of dudes that are just not afraid. Braden Smith's not afraid. What happens is if Lance Jones and Braden Smith are not shooting well, right? And you have to get the ball to Zach Edey, you have to have someone in there that can bang. That's why you need a Gillis. That's why you have to have one of these guys that are consistently being like third and fourth or fifth level scorer, not level, but scoring options to where it's like they get in and it's like they bang you. And as good as like, as much as I love, Kaufman Wren for that right, he does not do anything that changes Purdue dynamically from that capacity. He can go get he's awesome rebounding, awesome. He can score. He can totally score, but he doesn't spread out your defense.
Yeah.
Now, some of what you're saying where he's, the high-low switches to where like he's feeding the ball from like the elbow down to Edie on the block on passes because of, switching and screens and whatever. That's humongous. That's another wrinkle. But that can be if Edie misses that layup, which you're going to take the percentage shots or what happens, and he's out of position and not get that rebound because Kaufman, they like having Kaufman down low because he cleans up a lot of rebounds.
Yeah.
But that's the thing when Mason Gillis is in the lineup, he goes and crashes. He gets a hell of a lot of boards. Mason Gillis does so many hustle plays. Yeah. He's just like a winning basketball player. But he didn't really have like a very good game today, And I think that showed up, honestly, by like how good Purdue can be. Because if Gillis isn't willing to take him, then you have to have somebody like a young gun, like a Colvin to come in or like Heidi come in, like where it's like, you got to take that shot. And you got to believe you're going to make it. And Colvin thinks he's going to make it every time he shoots it.
Yeah, and that's great. Like I have
you have to have a little bit of that. Like 6-8 points from somebody like that is game changing.
I have no problem at all with Colvin jacking. I say jacking shots, but just shooting, putting pressure on the defense just because you're a threat to shoot it, whether you make it or not.
And he can get his own shot off the dribble too. He can go move and get with his handles and pull up in your face. He can do that.
When we spoke on the other night, that was my point after the Minnesota game. Like Gillis had a good game, but like, and it's kind of been a trend for me. Like he waits for someone to close out, and if you just catch that ball in rhythm and let it go, if you're playing with Edie and Kaufman Wren on your team, by all means, please shoot that wide open shot. Like sometimes if you have a hard closeout and then you swing it for a better shot, yes, that's the right play. But if you catch in rhythm, you got to let that go because now, nobody ever closed out. Now it gets congested. You're late in the shot clock. That's the kind of thing that to me, if you're going to do that, and I have Gillis or my choice of Gillis or Colvin, and in that sense, I really like Colvin's upside. But it's just a mentality thing for Gillis. Like I can't imagine Painter being like, "Hey, make sure we're making the right play." I gotta imagine. I have no knowledge of this, but I gotta imagine. Man, you need to take that shot. We need you to take that shot, miss or make. We're gonna live with that because we know you of everyone on this team. I trust you to take it. You've taken the most, big shots almost of anybody in this team. And you're going to follow your shot, or we're going to get an offensive rebound. Like it's going to be okay. Shoot that shot.
But if you go back and I believe it was the Marquette game, could have been Tennessee. I think it was Marquette, or might have been Gonzaga. Might have been Gonzaga, where Colvin came in. Of course, there's no report on whatever, and that's where. But he came in, hit like I think 3 3-pointers.
Yeah,
that changed how that game went.
And if you give him more minutes,
that'd
help you if he starts feeling it and he can understand.
He's the kind of person that could get a 20 burger in a media timeout. For sure. Like not even playing around. Like,
and here's the crazy thing, and I know I've belabored this over time with you, but if his fucking dad didn't buy him an AAU team and just let him play against the best players, this lawyer would not have seen the floor this year. He's that athletically gifted, and he's actually got a better jump shot than I even understood.
There's been reference, there's been references, just to a little bit of that recently, actually, on as far as like some defense and things, on Golden Black or whatever. But like Colvin's dad is an all-timer, right?
For him, whether it happens his freshman year or his junior year, it's going to happen for him. He's going to do it the right way. I'm just surprised that I'm encouraged that his jumper looks this polished. At this point, that was unexpected. I thought we were talking about a 6'5" athlete, but he has the tools, and I always thought his key. It's surprising because I thought his key to getting any playing time at this year, his freshman year with this team, was going to be, I'm going to be a wing stopper. I'm going to be able to use my lateral quickness to buy me minutes, and he really hasn't shown that as much as his ability to shoot.
Well, someone broke down some tape of something. And you need to get, it wasn't Ant Right. You need to get on there and find Ant Right on Twitter. You probably already have, but you need to, because like he breaks down stuff. He's great. And it was funny. He actually just, it was even after the Purdue game, because he was probably getting killed by dumb stuff, but he's like, he started saying like Mid-Atlantic or whatever, like, so, like just started making fun of some of the Big East teams or whatever else. And he was like, the Big East is more or less like the A10, but with some better athletes or something. It was like he pretty much just like, like it was like, well, that's he's not wrong. And man, he just got killed for that, But he's hilarious. But he breaks down film and what have you. But literally, as far as that goes, you need to, like, if somebody broke down something where Colvin had the ball, and like I was telling you, like just kind of like funnel the guy to the end line. And I don't think he could have done that 3 games ago. Like, so there's progress being made. If you're getting these reps in practice, especially in Purdue practices, and you're going against the guys he has to go against, you are going to get better and better and better and better.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think that
completely agree with what you just recently said. Reveille is being called. And I think regarding the actual, timing of all the stuff we were talking about before, like, is, at that point, I think you said this, on the time watch there, but
yeah.
Anyways, real quick, any closing thoughts? And
yeah, I think just to put a bow on it, just as far as Purdue, you don't really need to worry about too much today. See how they respond. I think that the next few weeks are. I really think that how I felt after the Minnesota game is pretty much how I feel here, save for a couple defensive lapses that I saw. I'd have to really go back and really watch, more in depth on the offensive possessions, but. Man, I'm just really encouraged, and I think that not every loss is really a loss. You can take more from the lessons. So I would encourage fans to pump the brakes on the, getting Lawyer in the transfer portal and all this stuff after a 4-point loss to Ohio State.
He's not going to win, and honestly, I think he's sort of tied to Braden Smith in that way.
Yeah.
All things being equal, that to be something pretty like, hey, we don't really need you. Like, that's the conversation never going to happen. So Matt Painter puts a lot of faith in him, and he knows he's going to get there. And honestly, like, every team has flaws. I know Connecticut fans don't think their team has any flaws, that they're like doubles with Michael Jordan in 98. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's like, last time I checked, like, losing at Seton Hall by 15 points, the Bulls would not have done that. I mean, I'm just saying, like, then losing at Kansas, I understand it's at Kansas, tough place to play, but it's like Kansas is probably going to end up with 7, 8, 9 losses. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But anyways, we should totally do. We'll probably break down, I'm sure, the Rutgers game, and then we play at home against Rutgers on Thursday night. Well, I'm sure we'll break that down. Upcoming, I know.
Give me 10 seconds. We'll end this here, but give me 10 seconds. Look in the camera and just sound off on UConn fan for me. I need to laugh before I go to bed.
The UConn fan,
UConn guy.
Oh yes.
Connecticut just.
Oh yeah.
Leftover crab meat eating.
Yeah.
Piece of shit.
Yeah. The total Goomba. Like he's in there trying to, like, kill me on something on Twitter right now.
I wasn't aware there was an individual.
There's many there's many Yukons.
Go have at it.
The two Yukons is what it is.
Have at it.
There's more than one. So more or less, the guy like tried to like break down, like have a spelling contest or something like where he didn't, he wasn't trying. No, he wasn't trying. Like he couldn't spell, and which is fine. It's like I thought it was a civilized university, no big deal. But so when a person comes at me with the transitive property of like sports, like, well, it's like, well, we beat, Marquette by 30. We beat him by 30, and you guys had to only beat him by 3 and it took like a full court half quarter the buzzer of a halftime for you to, ultimately win the game by 3. So basically one lucky, 3/4 court shot is what was the deciding difference between you and Marquette. And, we won by 30 at home going away. And I'm thinking like, yeah, that's one way to look at it. Also, we played Gonzaga one day, the next day, Tennessee, a totally different style. And then next day, Marquette, who had just obliterated Kansas to get to the championship game of the hardest Maui Invitational field ever. And Purdue wins that in consecutive days with no time off, no rest. You're going right at it, quick scouting report, what have you, and you still go and win a championship game in which we were beating Marquette, I believe, at one point by 16, 18, 20. We were beating them that bad at one point, and they had Sean Jones, one of their best players, guards, out for the season, like sadly a few weeks ago when it happened. And they still didn't even play him with him. They're a totally different team. I mean, you can't lose a lead guard even when you've got Tyler Kolek on your team and still expect to be, as good as you are. It's just not going to happen. I don't care how good you are. And clearly you're seeing the effects because playing against, UConn, they didn't have enough for him in the game. So we've already deliberated, when they go back and play at Marquette, we all know that's going to be a dogfight. Marquette's probably going to win that game. I mean, if I were wagering on it, I would take Marquette in the points and the money line, especially because they totally disrespected the players at the end of that game too. And people don't forget that crap. And you're not getting that home whistle. You're not all the things that are going really well for you can come off the rails. And all of a sudden that can be a real eye opener, And so anyways, this guy had to go on and on and on about this and this. And I was like, well, Seton, I was like, St. John's, a team you guys beat by 4 at your home. Michigan, the worst team in the Big Ten, pistol whipped them, in the beginning of the season, just totally clowned them, and that's a team you barely beat. So are you the same? Are you a little bit worse than Michigan? Because they beat them by more than you beat St. John's, or you guys lost by 15 at Seton Hall, who's probably an NIT team, might make the NCAA tournament. I don't know, but it's not. They're a bubble team at best, let's say, and they lost. They beat you by 15, and they lost to Iowa by 12 or 15 points, and we clown punched Iowa twice, one by 20 some points once, and one by 15 at their place. So it's I mean, are we 45 points better than UConn? I don't know. If you play that game all day, would UConn have probably beaten Ohio State? Yeah, probably. Maybe not today. Maybe not today with them being their Super Bowl. Maybe last week you'd have beat them by 50 points, but not in today's game. And when, where, and how you play them makes all the difference in the world in college basketball. And one of the blessings of Twitter is that everybody has a voice, and one of the curses that everybody has a voice, including dumbass UConn bastard. I said it. You'll find me.
You'll find me.
Or I'll find you, Goomba. This hair is Italian. Yo. I know people.
Jesus.
Just kidding. Tough room.
They have Nepalese coins.
What are we going to
UConn guy. My passion is my hobby. I go on Twitter with UConn fans.
Yes, it's wild. So,
well,
anywho, yes.
They are fun.
Wrap it up, my friend.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up now. We'll be doing this again, and we'll have some details for you as far as next step for the channel, and really just start to ramp up for tournament time. And
yeah, March Madness, baby.
Yeah, it's
close. 1 month from today.
Yeah,
Selection Sunday. That's wild. Well,
Yeah.
really 4 weeks, but yes, 1 month.
Yeah,
29 days
it'll
this year.
be interesting to watch
the
mighty fall.
Yeah, so we'll be doing a preview tournament show probably this same time 1 month from now. Faux
Probably
show.
not sober. Maybe.
Probably
Maybe
not.
Maybe.
I'll have to see what UConn guy tweets me after they're out of the tournament, and I can give him one of those Coleman Hawkins Joker laughs.
Maybe.
He did it again after Purdue lost today. It's like, you still have to play us, dude. What are you talking about? And by the way, Illinois will probably go and lose at Penn State this week. It'll just be so funny.
We get really bad ideas late at night. We may be doing this show from stores.
Yeah, we might do a live. We'll do.
There was one time where we got bored at 2 a.m. and thought it might be a good idea to go to Indiana Beach and make bread shoes and walk on carp. Going to stores.
Yeah, going to stores seems like that.
Basketball game is nothing.
Going to stores seems like it would be an upgrade from Indiana Beach.
Yeah,
with carp sandals.
I don't know.
Same
vibes. All right.
Yeah. All right. Take care, brother. All right. Much love.